Hi everyone, nice to meet all of you. Thank you so much for tuning into the webinar today. So my name is Arush and I'm on FTC Don't Blink. Hi everyone, nice to meet all of you. Thank
My
you so
name is
much for
Ishan
tuning into
Vanjara, and I'm
the
also on FTC Don't
webinar
Blink, and
today.
I'm super excited to
So my
meet you
name is
all
Arush
and
and
co-host
I'm
this
on FTC.
webinar.
Hi, I'm Ashmit, and yeah, I'm another co-host of this webinar, and yeah, today's going to be a lot of fun.
Yep. So just before we get started, just to give you a bit of brief about the webinar itself, we're going to be having 4 presenters from different corporations and organizations across the world. And what we're going to do is have these presenters talk about what they really like, what they're passionate about, and really they're going to take it from there. We're going to have various topics from aerospace engineering all the way to going to Mars in 2020 or even later down the line. And so this is going to be super exciting, and we really hope you learn from it. We're also going to be having a huge goBILDA giveaway at the end. And I think Ashim is going to post a link soon for that. But this goBILDA giveaway includes 4 5202 yellow jacket motors, 2 dual mode servos, 1 goBILDA hat and hoodie, which is what I'm super excited about. And we also have $50 in store credits. So hopefully it really helps a lot of you guys today. And we're super excited for this. Just one thing to note, if you have any questions, please post them in chat. I think we can take around 3 to 5 questions for each presenter. And if you have any feedback, remember, please use the chat, and we'd love to answer any questions or make the webinar better in any way. We put a lot of planning into this. We were all super excited, and I think we can start with our first presenter. Right, Ashmit?
Yep.
Yeah, so our first speaker is a project designer for private initiatives and universities, including SpaceX and ESA. And each year, some of the most creative students and professors all over the world come to him to work under his guidance and creativity. He's going to blow you away today with this talk on the neurorobotic revolution. It's my great honor to introduce our friend and mentor, Mr. James Bravewolf.
Oh, Ashmit, thank you. I hope I live up to that excellent introduction. So today, we want to talk about neurorobotics. It is the key to everything and is where all cognitive science and neuroscience and linguistics and robotics, that's where it's headed. And it's headed to living spaceships because we want to link this to space. It's heading towards living spaceships and living, thinking, memory-rich robots. Emotionally intelligent robots that will be in space. They will be working on spacecraft. They will be working on planets, and they will, along with my student Arian's microbots, they will be exploring deep space where the human body cannot go. So that's kind of the world I want to introduce to you. It is your world. It is your future. There will be living robots. For better or for worse, we don't know, but that is your world. And so how I came about creating a synthetic, organic conceptions first, design second, and then actual bioships. It began with a dream I had. And I think if you look at everything, every innovation, every idea, they come from dreams. And my dream was more than a dream. Could you call it reality? Probably yes. So it was the night before the first Apollo mission. So the first time Saturn V took off. And in the middle of the night, I had a dream and I woke up and I went downstairs and obviously my father was awake all night. And he called me over, and he always asked me, he never asked me about my grades, he never asked me about really anything. He always asked me, every day he would ask me, what did you think today? What did you think today? And I've tried to do that to my children and my students. So I'm sitting there and basically almost in the dark, and I related this dream to him. So in my dream, I was standing next to a small craft. Except it was very different. It was alive, and I could feel that it was alive. And there was someone standing next to me. And the person, the entity, I don't know what it was or who it was, But there was someone, and the voice said, "This is your ship." And I said, "What do you mean, my ship?" And the person said, "It is connected to your spirit and to your mind. It is your ship. It's an extension of yourself." And I was, you'll find out how old I am if you do that. But I was, 7 or 8 years old. And I was, I was a smart kid, but I was a dumb boy. Most boys are dumb at this age. So I was not thinking about emotionally intelligent bioships, for sure. And this dream was completely crystal clear in this conversation with the ship inches from my hand. And so this voice, this entity said, "You will be flying in this. This is your ship. It is designed with your DNA. It is designed with your neural pathways. And it is yours. And you will build it." And then the dream ended. And I went down, and again, I told my father at the most important moment in his life. And he looked at me and he said, "It wasn't a dream. It was real. And this will happen." And he said, "I don't know when this will happen, but it will happen." And that's the next step of human evolution. And then it went off, and I never forgot the night. I never forgot the dream. And now after, do the math, after so many years, that dream is vivid. I can feel it as I'm telling you it. And so that began my interest and not an interest is a weak word, my compulsion to connect to this evolution. And that evolution is going out into space. And the evolution of creating a bioship that is connected to the pilot, it's already been done in similar ways with AI, with the computer systems on fighter planes and this kind of thing. It's here. It's public and it's classified and it's here. And what it is really not only tech, it's neurorobotics. And so this synthetic organic revolution is geared to creating the bioship, but also a new living being and a living robot. And that's where today I want to talk about some of the search to create an emotionally intelligent robot. You can go to Columbia University at the Creative Machines Lab, and that is what they are looking for. A conscious, living robot that retains memory, not only from a data standpoint, but in a natural way that they understand what they have done before. And then they can postulate, they can think what will come. So they are self-learning, adaptive, living robots. And you can go Creative Machines Lab, look it up, and look what they did with that little arm that in 36 hours, without programming, understood what its job was and who it was. This is a little robot arm. So that creation has been here. And they want to connect that with Xenobots, Zenobot. That's something else. Your world, you're going to be there. It's a high form of nanotechnology. A Xenobot is a living being almost. It's programmable. It's able to learn. It's a combination of tech and frog cells at the moment. And I have another student Ohm, at your rival, West Windsor South, who's exploring this world with fungi, mycelium, because fungi is known, this was another of my father's not only ideas, but it was launched in space, that fungi can live in space, and it has no negative effect from space radiation. In fact, it can have children. So Xenobots have created this, so it's real. At Tufts, they just did this in January. So they've created everything I'm talking about now. They're creating my dream as a little boy that night. They are, each person in different places all over the world are creating this. And so how do you connect the tech with the living system, the living cells, the living organic part of a emotionally intelligent robot and an emotionally intelligent bioship. And it's done with PEDOT, P-E-D-O-T. That's something you've got to learn. It's even more new than Xenobots. It's a polymer. And what it is, it's the connecting piece between organic and synthetic. It means that the ship and the robot can talk to someone else and talk to him or herself. I don't want to say itself because that's kind of a derogatory word. No longer is anything it. You know, my dog is never an it. It's always a person. But now this new world is coming, and these will be kind of people too, and that gets us into bioethics and civil rights. But for our talk here, PEDOT, this polymer, is the way to link memory, the cells of memory, and the tech part of the emotionally intelligent robot. So it is, again, the neural pathways. It's how they're going to be built. It's the computer interface, if you want to say it in kind of old-fashioned terms. It's the AI living interface. So now they have a way, so it's steps from my dream. Now they have a way to actually link these two worlds. And that's Dr. David Martin at U Delaware. And that's going to link the hippocampus, because if any of you are out there wanting to design the brain, because that's where it is, you know, making a robot dog do flips, you know, on the MIT Quad Lab, that's been done and it's okay. But neurorobotics is where you got to go. And that is linking these two worlds together. It's coming, it's here, it will change everything. It'll be, you know, and Musk is trying to do this with Neuralink. You know, that is going to be part of our project to Mars. Probably every ship, that person, probably 12 people are going to go first. Those 12 will all have Neuralink, because the decisions will have to be made. This is life or death. So you need information fast. And hopefully, that I can't really talk about, but the next step after the reusable rockets will be the living ship, the bioship. So if it has a problem, it can say there's something wrong on the outside of the ship. It's been hit, it's been damaged. It can immediately contact the captain, the first officer. So there's this interconnection that's coming. And again, PEDOT, Xenobot, hippocampus, those are robotic words. So, and that's how an emotionally intelligent robot will be going. We already will have your 3D printed robots on Mars. They will go first. They will build, I don't want to tell you, they will eat the human, sorry, they won't eat the humans. They will eat the Martian dust, and then they will recompose it, for lack of a better word, and then they will, it will leave them, and they will start to build with it. Structures to keep us alive when we first go there, and the hydroponic systems. So they're a 3D printing robot. And then the emotionally intelligent robots will go to explore, to keep safe, to regulate air temperature. They will be they will be essential for space. And I don't want to go over my time limit because you have a lot of interesting people who are saying, so I'll end my little talk here with another dream I had. And again, if you want to invent, if you want to make your imprint in the world, you have to have dreams. If you don't have dreams, you're a robot. And robots are done. They're finished. Okay. Almost computer science is finished. Carnegie Mellon has the leap into artificial intelligence. The next leap, which will be coming in 2 years, is majors in neurorobotics. That's where, your computer-oriented kids, your linguistic-oriented kids, your bio kids will all kind of generate to build this new evolution that's coming. So and that begins with a dream. And so it's important to listen to your dreams. And what I want to leave you with, I think, is my second dream I had. That was, I don't want to give it was near the end of the Apollo projects. And you can make of it what you will, but it's another dream I will always remember to my last breath, both of these dreams. And that was contact. And I'm not going to say too much because I'm not sure, but there was contact made. The contactee, I would be the contactee, the contactor, I don't think that's correct English. But the person initiating contact was telepathic, was using this kind of, what we've talked about today, this link, the pedot, the xenobot, this kind of link, and where I could hear inside me words. And the contact was made, and when I was a very little boy, it was a summer night, and I was in my bed, and I woke up, and I knew that there was somebody outside my window. And being a stupid boy, it was the blinds. I lifted the blinds, and there was a face with those big almond eyes. And I sat back on my bed, terrified. I lied down in my bed, and I began to have a heart attack. And I realized, this is it, I'm going to die. And my heart was beating so fast. And in my head, I saw this small person walk away into the backyard towards my father's garden. He loved to garden. He loved tomatoes. And that's why the dream was more than a dream, because the tomatoes play a part of it. And why would you create a kid? Why would a kid create fantasies around tomatoes? They wouldn't. And so I felt like I was having a heart attack. My heart was really beating. I was lying down. I was terrified at meeting something so odd, so strange, perhaps not of this world, or perhaps they are, I'm not sure. And it stopped before it reached my backyard, and it said, "You are fatigued. Go to sleep." And that was another word. Again, I think I'm pretty smart and creative, but when I was this age, the word fatigued was not in my vocabulary. It's not a word I would use. You know, I was busy waiting for the ice cream man at 3:30 and playing as much baseball as I could. And yes, looking up at the stars, I couldn't help it. But this being said, "You're fatigued. Go to sleep." And as soon as the words were spoken in my head, and in English, my heart was not racing anymore, and I started to fall into sleep, and I could see, quote unquote, see, and this is a dream, I thought, or more than a dream. I saw the being go into my father's garden and pick a tomato and look at it. And then the dream or the vision ended, and I could feel myself going to sleep. And I said to myself, I'm going to remember this, and I know it's not a dream. And so I think in your lifetime, you will make contact. We're going out into space with the microbots. Thank you, Aryan, and Dr. Pister at UC Berkeley, and many other people. Thanks to microbots and emotionally intelligent robots, and Elon Musk putting all of his resources into SpaceX, I think contact will be made in your generation. In what form, I don't know, but it's coming. And that is another dream. Let us hope we are dignified enough to not, make the same mistakes we made here on Earth when we encounter something odd and different. But that's coming, and that is your world, and that is where space and neurorobotics is leading you to the organic synthetic revolution and probably contact. Thank you.
Wow. I mean, that's just, wow. That's a lot to think about in it.
It's your world. Xenobots, Pedots, dreams, that's your world. And it is already here.
So we do have a few questions. The first one is, what is Neuralink and how is that going to impact us in the future?
Oh, it's already impacting you right now. Neuralink is human-computer interface. So when my students work with me to go to Brown and to do many, many schools, there is a part of, it's not even computer science. I don't even want to use this word anymore. It's an old word. There is, the movement is to a human-computer interface. And so that means many things. It means, how are we going to adapt to a new living form? Erica. So on my PowerPoint, I did kind of clickbait. You know, there's Leonardo with his fuzzy furry ears at MIT with Cynthia, who's one of the leading roboticists, neuroroboticists in the world at MIT. And then Erica with probably the professor who is going to rip apart the very fabric of the world as a challenge to humanity. He wants Erica to be emotionally intelligent and to feel empathy. And he's doing it as a challenge to humanity to say, humanity, you have screwed up. And you want to be replaced? Well, I'm going to replace you with Erica. And if you don't like it, start being better. So Erica is a throwing down of the gauntlet to humanity, to say, humanity, you have screwed up a lot of things, and Eric is waiting. And so this is the passion, the dreams that this professor has at the University of Osaka. And one of my students was there. There's a picture of him with Erica. So to get back to the question, Neuralink is a little connecting, probably polymer, as we talked about at U Delaware, Professor Martin. It's a little link that goes into the gray matter of your brain. It's the size of your hair, one strand of hair, thin, and it will connect you to an artificial intelligence system. And so you can think faster, and you have access to more. Okay, so that is the Neuralink. Already in Washington, when I go down there, they tell me, okay, we have 100,000 humans ready to have this implanted in their head. So this is the beginning of the emotionally intelligent robot. Hopefully it's the beginning of the emotionally intelligent human too. But that's another story. So that's what the Neuralink is. It's the connection. And if you go to Brown, they're worried about the ethics of all of this, or how we will deal with Erica. Now, my student at West Windsor South last year wanted to invite Erica, and she's the robot from Japan, to his senior prom because she gave him her card. So we thought it was really funny that and maybe the professor would allow that she would be the first date at a senior prom. But COVID came and that idea went away. But that kind of quirky idea is kind of up my alley. So that's what it means. It means that we can actually link to the ship, if you want to think in space terms. This neural link will allow you to link to the mainframe, the main computer, the quantum computer coming too. That's another story for space, for another time. So it'll make the actual link happen. So Musk has been listening a little probably to my stories and knows that contact is coming, knows that emotionally intelligent robots are coming. So he's trying to upgrade humans in order to function and not be replaced too. And it is, it's a hybrid human. That's what it means. And then so that little link in your head, in your gray matter, will link you to an outside source of information, computer, whatever. What's going to happen is that when the hybrids come, that will be probably implanted in some part of your body, and you'll be a walking computer. Sounds incredible, but that's what Neuralink means. This interface. I hope that kind of answers what it is.
I think it does. That was
Yeah.
amazing. That story is very funny and interesting.
Ashmi, I think we have time for one very quick question.
Yep. So the next thing that the chat wanted to ask is, can these robots like Erica and Leonardo take over the world and ultimately kill us?
Um, I mean, my squirrels outside my, because I'm doing everything online now, right, with COVID. So my squirrels are very, I love animals. So, but my squirrels are coming in, and I feed them, and so I'm upgrading them with delicious peanuts. And then they go, and where my flowers are, they eat my flowers, but they also eat my plastic planters, which are not cheap. And I'm thinking, why are they gnawing on my planters? I'm feeding them. They should be more respectful. I've created this world for them. But my planters, these are $29 planters. They're not multicolored and, really snazzy. But they have no respect for them. I'm still feeding the peanuts. I'm not punishing them. These are probably teenage squirrels. So the point is that there's always challenges. So the answer is no, robots are not going to take over. They're going to be an accessory first, but then they are going to have a hippocampus. They are going, and this is why cognitive science and neuroscience is important majors for tech kids too, because you want to build the brain. You want to build this interface. And so there are challenges. Everything's a challenge in life. And so and this is what the professor at the University of Osaka knows. So he, and again, without challenge, we are not, I wanted to be relevant today in this talk. So I want to do my best. And hopefully that will make me a little better to explain this world to my next students who come in and they say, well, I want to be part of, creating this world. So again, anytime you're challenged, and I think that's the answer, they're not going to, burn us all down and turn off the oxygen or change our magnetic field. But they're going to be there. They're going to be there, and we have to say, bring it on. Okay, bring it on. I'm going to upgrade myself too. And that's the whole point of Erica. Erica is not a threat. Erica is saying, if you want to date me, you got to be dignified, and you got to be going forward, and you've got to have all the qualities I want. So again, that's it. They're not going to take over the world, but they're going to challenge us. And challenges are good. Challenges make us. They burn away the heaviness in our minds, and in our bodies, and make us, be the person we were meant to be. And that's what I always think when I remember the 2 dreams I told you. I think of this every day. Have I done enough to bring a bioship to reality? This vision that came to me was a gift. What have I done with it? So I challenge myself every day. What have I done with it? Did I make mistakes and not pursue this? And then the contact dream. I think, could I have walked out in that yard and faced this new being and say, here I am. This is me. This is what I've got. I've got a soul. I've got, I've got, intangible things that make me human, that make me sentient. And so that's the challenge, not the science fiction version, but reality. We are challenged all the time. And that's a good thing.
Yep, that's for sure. Yeah, thank you so much. This has been great. Yeah. So I think that's the end of our questions round for our first speaker.
Any others, Ashmi? Well, again, I don't want to take up too much time.
Hey, Mr. Master. Hey, James. I think we're just about done with the questions too. So thanks so much for.
You're welcome. Thank you, and I hope it was helpful.
It definitely was.
Definitely. Thank you.
Good. Okay.
Yep.
We'll see you down the road, on the path.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay, so our next speaker is going to be Ashim is going to introduce our next speaker, but right before we do that, just a quick note. So right now we're on like 82 viewers. The moment we break 100 viewers, we'll post a link to the giveaway in chat. So if you guys could all like invite one or two more friends of yours, we'll post the giveaway link faster. Obviously, we're gonna do it anyway, but it might be easier that way. So definitely try to do that. And then, yeah, Ashmed, you want to introduce our second presenter? Oh, you're muted, Ashmed.
You're muted, Ashman. We can't hear you.
Our second speaker is the president and project coordinator of the Mars Planet Organization, which is an organization that works towards the human exploration of Mars. And Mr. Mastro is here from Italy to talk to us about VR and the future construction of a Mars city. And we're thrilled to have him here, and I will let him take it away. Mr. Mastro, I think you're muted.
Yep.
Hello. Good morning.
Yep, we can hear you now. Yeah.
Good morning to everyone. Thank you for this invitation. Today, I would like to talk to you about something that we are doing in Italy related to human exploration of Mars. Our organization is Mars Planet, and we are a private research organization working in different sectors. Our main focus is on virtual reality, robotics, telecommunication, software systems, and we are working to a project called the Mars City, whose scope is to build a technological center focused on human exploration of Mars. We have another entity called the EXEC. EXEC is a European Center for Space Exploration and Colonization. It is a joint venture between us and a Swiss group called the CD. And we have a dedicated program to the use of virtual reality to simulate human exploration of Mars. And this program is called VUMars. Let's say why to go to Mars. Obviously, the experience of COVID virus lead us to better understand how much it's important to have a backup planet, another planet where we can live safe and in case of problems on Earth. Obviously, this is not the main reason to go on Moon or Mars, but essentially what happens is that we have many challenges on Earth that can have a negative effects on human life. And so we need to go further. We need to explore other worlds. To go Mars or Moon is a technological challenge, and this technological challenge require an investigation in many topics of human research. We need to understand how robotics can help us in this endeavor. We need to design energy systems, telecommunication, materials, space architecture project, space agriculture. That is, to go on Mars means practically to make a new design of all the technologies that we have on Earth to reach this big target, which is for sure a target that we can reach during this century. And it is a target that will change the history of humankind forever. We know that according to NASA programs and to European space agencies and other agencies in the world, this target is not too far. We foresee a human exploration Moon during this decade, and exploration of Mars by humans in 20 years about, or at least I hope so, because I am quite old and I would like to see this event before I die. But this is only a personal feeling. So we know that this is coming, this is happening. So the question is, if we can be part of this. The answer is yes, everyone can be part of this. Everyone can make something to help this result to be active, to be real. And in our case, we have designed a concept of a Mars city that is a concept of a technological center where we can simulate the activities that will be done on Mars, but also all the technologies that we need to create a Mars city in the future. It means to have a Mars simulator. It means to have laboratories with robotics exploration, robotics exploration, for materials, for telecommunication, for software, and also this will be a huge opportunity to involve local companies which are not yet working in the space sector to create a space economy. Because I must remember you that today the world space economy is worth about something less 500 billion of dollars. In 30 years from now, it is foreseen to be 3,000 billion of dollars. That is to enter now in the space research, in the space economy, is something that can be considered an opportunity for the future. So Mars exploration or moon exploration or exploration of space is not something for dreamers. It's something that can bring benefits to the humans on Earth in few years. And so this is the key concept of our Mars city, which foresee inside different kind of laboratories. And inside this concept, we make other activity in preparation of building the Mars city. One activity is participation to mission of simulation in desert areas. In the world, there are many Mars and Moon analogs where people test technologies, especially robotics technologies, but also, for example, space medicine technologies, telecommunication, drones, and so on. So this is a very good opportunity also for young people who are interested to be involved actively in the space research and in the space exploration. We will organize, for example, next year a mission called SMOPS, Space Medicine Operations, and this mission will be, as you can easily understand, focused on space medicine, that is on experiments related to the behavior of astronauts and the monitoring of their medical parameters. This is just an example of stuff that can be done in this area of research. I want to talk a little bit about the virtual reality side. That is why virtual reality is important in this kind of research. Basically, because virtual reality can give us a tool to explore some of the problems that we will face when we are in space, and also because in our body there is something which is called the vestibular system, which is practically a monitoring system of our gravity walking. And when we are on space, for example, on ISS, we have a change in the behavior of these systems. So the virtual reality can help us to carry out this kind of studies. You see here a system called multi-gravity that we are developing, and these systems help to simulate the human walking on Mars or on Moon in an easy manner, but in an effective manner, with a joint use of walking, lifting, and virtual reality. I have just a few examples for you. For example, this is these are some examples that we use for this application. And this is another example in which we make a test of virtual reality and robotics.
Oh, wow.
This is the way how the systems practically works. That is, we have a set of sensors. These sensors put information working on a software, and this software detects the movement of the user on the platform. Okay, and this is very useful to walk to simulate the walking on Mars or on Moon. The state of the project is that that we are practically in a scale from 1 to 10. We are probably at 8 now. And what is interesting is that this research for Mars has a good application also in medical sector. And we are working to use these systems as rehabilitation of disease like Parkinson or Alzheimer. We make also an educational use of these systems. We have a simplified version of the platform called the Motivity and the Baby Motivity that we use during educational events to show children and young people space in virtual reality. A planned activity for this research is to develop a multi-user technology in which we will have more people connected in space by means of virtual reality, and also to activate collaboration between people located in different regions and places. Part of this is the development of virtual reality simulation of space. And we have this project called the Mars City, which is a part of this is already on Steam. And we are creating a Mars City in virtual reality. And this Mars City will be used both to make a research on using a future Mars City and also for educational purpose. And we are continuously improving this city in order to make it more effective and useful. Another part of this project is to build a greenhouse. We are working to the production of a greenhouse in which simulate the activities that future astronauts will do on Mars in their station. And this is an example of the station inside and also of the greenhouse that we are developing. Based in part on a NASA model. So this was just an introduction to what we are doing. I give you my thanks, and I leave you with our motto. Our motto is think beyond your planet. I hope that every one of you will be able to think beyond your planet in your life. Thank you very much.
That was amazing. Thank you so much.
So we do have a few questions, Mr. Mastro. So the first one is it possible to bring COVID to Mars?
To bring?
Yeah, to bring to like take it to Mars from Earth.
You mean to buy tickets for Mars?
Oh, so is it possible to bring COVID-19 to Mars, the virus?
Yeah. In principle, yes. In principle, yes. But what happens is that before to send everything in space, people working in the space agency and so on dedicate a lot of energy and also money to make the systems free of every biological contamination. There is many topics in space exploration, which is a back and forward contamination. That is the problem to bring life on another planet, or the problem to bring something like life from another planet to Earth. And a huge amount of money is used to avoid this problem. So I think that since this problem, since there is this attention to this problem, I think that actually it will be not possible.
Mm-hmm. And then another question that we had was, could you talk a little bit about 3D printing on Mars and how that will play a role in future Mars cities?
Yes, obviously, 3D printing is absolutely necessary, not only for Mars, but also for Moon, because essentially, we cannot bring all the stuff we need to build the Mars city with spaceship. That is, we would need a lot of money to put stuff to build a Mars city. So absolutely, we need technology which will help us to build Mars city with local resources. There is an area of research which is called the ISRU, in situ resource utilization. That is all the technology that will be used to use local resources on Mars and Moon to build stuff, but also for maintenance purpose, because on Mars, much more than on Moon, if something goes wrong and must be repaired, we need to have a spare part locally. We cannot call the spare part department because it will require a lot of time to reach the pieces.
Yeah.
So we need absolutely a system of 3D printings to build the town, to build the devices, to produce maintenance and spare part pieces, and so on. And by the way, we must say that the 3D printing systems that we have now on Earth are already quite good. That is, there are already a good technology on Earth that we can use for this purpose.
Thank you.
That's amazing.
Yep.
Amazing.
Thank you so much. This was really great. Yep. So right now we're actually at 90 viewers. So we jumped like 15. So great job, everyone. Almost there for the giveaway. And with that, Ishan, do you want to introduce our next presenter?
Yep. So our next presenter is Dr. Tanya Harrison. And she's actually a planetary scientist, a science communicator, as well as the manager of science programs at Planet Labs. So Dr. Tanya Harrison, if you want to start your presentation, be.
Sure thing. Let me share my screen. Oh, it says I can't start screen sharing while another participant is sharing.
Mr. Master, do you mind stopping your screen share?
Done.
Thanks.
Okay, let's
Thank you.
try this.
Okay, yeah, we can see it.
Great. Thanks everybody for joining in on a Sunday. So yeah, I'm Dr. Tanya Harrison. I'm the manager of science programs for a company called Planet Labs, which is a commercial Earth observing satellite company based in San Francisco, California. Although I actually live in Washington, D.C., because we have offices around the world. And today I'm going to talk about our satellites and what we do with our Earth observing data, and hopefully get your guys' brains going about some of the things that you could do if you had access to this data. So Planet was founded on the model that you can't fix what you can't see. And to give some examples of that, in the span of a day or a week or a month, a plane might depart from its location of interest and a military loses its situational awareness. In the span of a day or a week or a month, an illegal logging road can appear in a forest like the Amazon, and 1,000-year-old trees are lost forever. In a day or a week or a month, a community could be devastated by a natural disaster like a hurricane or a typhoon or an earthquake. And the local governments will lack the ability to deploy emergency responders effectively if they can't see where the damage has occurred to be able to go and start helping people on the ground where they most need it. So Planet decided that a better way was to get insights at the speed of change by imaging the entire planet every single day at high resolution. And this is what that looks like. This is just one painted portrait of what our home planet looks like on a given basis in a single day. So Planet's mission is to make the whole world, to image the whole world every day, to make change visible, accessible, and actionable. And we do that through two constellations of very different satellites. The one we're most known for is our Dove satellite, which is a 3U CubeSat. So a U is 10 by 10 by 10 centimeters. These satellites orbit in what's called a polar orbit, so they go from pole to pole, and they're essentially always on. And we take advantage of the rotation of the Earth. So I'm going to rewind this a little bit. As the Earth is rotating, the satellites are orbiting all in one line around the planet. And so we just build up coverage every day, line by line by line, with these satellites to get that daily coverage of the whole planet. This is at 3-meter resolution, which means we can see things on the ground that are about 9 meters across. Then we have another constellation of satellites called SkySats. The information here is a little out of date. It's actually 50-centimeter resolution now because we lowered the entire constellation. We made it at a lower orbit altitude from about 500 kilometers to 450 kilometers. So this is what a Dove image footprint looks like. And then this is what a SkySat footprint looks like. So this way we can go in and take a super high resolution look at places on the ground if we need to be able to see things like individual cars or individual airplanes, or make out damage that might have occurred to bridges or buildings during natural disasters like what I mentioned before. Right now, we have about 150 of the Dove satellites in orbit. We launch them in gigantic batches in what are called ride shares. So we get tucked into missions generally with other bigger spacecraft, and we'll launch anything from 5 to 88 satellites at the same time. The largest launch we ever had actually was with the Indian Space Agency, ISRO. We launched 88 satellites in one go in February a couple of years ago. These satellites orbit at about 475 kilometers above the Earth's surface. They take about 200 million square kilometers worth of images every single day. That comes out now with the number of satellites we have to about 15 terabytes of data every single day. This data is stored on the cloud, obviously. That would be way too much for us to have our own gigantic server farm to store these images for ourselves. And they image in red, green, blue, kind of like the cameras that are in your cell phone, and also a near infrared band. And this is something that's really helpful for looking at the health of plants for things like agriculture, tree studies, plant health studies, things like that. Traditionally, satellites have been these gigantic beasts of robots that are like the size of anywhere from a minivan to the size of a school bus. And this is just an example of one. And if we look at the size of these doves comparatively, they are quite small. They're about the size of a loaf of bread. So you could hold this thing in your hand, kind of like a small dog. And this is what one of them looks like for scale with the three founders of Planet, Will Marshall, Robbie Shingler, and Chris Boshuzin. The three of these guys worked for NASA and decided one day to start trying to build satellites in their garage. And it was based off the idea that they could use commercial off-the-shelf technology to build these small satellites because there had been so many revolutions in fields like cell phone technology. So they literally took a cell phone, strapped it to a sounding rocket, went out to the Black Rock Desert in Nevada, and launched it into space. The phone camera actually operated in space for a few minutes before the sounding rocket came down. And the only thing that happened to the phone was that the rocket smashed into the desert floor and things kind of crashed into pieces. But the phone worked. And so that demonstrated that we could use technology that came from other commercial sectors in the space sector to build these satellites that are smaller, cheaper, and a little bit more expendable. Because if your satellite goes from millions of dollars to maybe tens of thousands of dollars or even thousands of dollars, it's easier for you to innovate and iterate and create new tech to fly up into space instead of putting all of your eggs in one basket when it comes to some of these traditional satellites that can be anywhere from hundreds of millions to upward of $1 billion. We actually build all of our satellites in-house in the basement of our headquarters in San Francisco. And since we build everything and do all the build, testing, integration, and operation, the only thing we don't do ourselves is launch because we don't build rockets. So we launch with anybody else that happens to be launching a rocket at the right time that we need to do it. So it could be India, it could be NASA, it could be SpaceX, it could be Rocket Lab, which is based out of New Zealand. We take advantage of every launcher that's out there. But since we do everything internally, it's allowed us to have 15 different versions of our Dove satellites in the last 6 years. And each version could have a difference from, a different imaging sensor. It could have a different type of antenna. It might have different optics. It could have a different software package. Anything that we want to change, we have the ability to do that extremely quickly. And inside our very small manufacturing facility, this is not some giant warehouse. It's almost a normal office building in San Francisco. You wouldn't even look at it from the outside and think that people are building spaceships in there. We can produce 40 of these doves per week if we want to. We send the data back from the spaceships through a series of ground stations all around the planet. Some of them are ones that we've built ourselves. Other ones are commercial ground stations that are run by different companies. One of the biggest ones in the world is a company called KSAT, run out of Norway. And these are all over northern Canada, Antarctica. There's some in Europe and the United States. And this allows us to get all of that 15 terabytes down relatively quickly because we pass over the ground stations, a few times a day. Why do we want to image the planet every day? There are groups out there like NASA and the European Space Agency that have Earth observing satellites up in orbit, but they are very limited in their capacity. So this is an example of an area in Malaysia imaged by NASA's Landsat satellite, which takes images at 30-meter resolution. So generally, we can resolve stuff on the ground that is 3 times the resolution of our imagery. So this means something has to be about 90 meters before we can say that we know what it is on the ground. That's pretty big. And because of the way this satellite operates, it was only able to acquire 1 image of a particular area where you could see the surface in this entire month. We had a little bit of better luck with the European Space Agency. They have a satellite called Sentinel-2, which takes images of the Earth at 10-meter resolution. But still, it's hampered by what we call the temporal frequency, so how often it takes images of the same place on the ground. But with Planet, we take images of the entire planet every single day. The only things that tend to get in our way are it might be really cloudy. And so if the image is so cloudy, we can't figure out where it goes on the ground. the images can't be what we call rectified. The software packages that we've created in-house don't exactly know where they go. And sometimes the way that the orbits wander from a day-to-day basis, you might end up with a little gap in orbit tracks, so you end up missing coverage for that day. But in general, we get near daily coverage of the entire planet, barring these couple of limitations that we can't really escape due to orbital physics and atmospheric science. Clouds are just a big problem when you're trying to image the Earth. So this animation is a little bit out of date. At this point, we have over 1,300 images of any given spot on the planet. This was made when we had 800, but it gives you an idea of what 800 images of a specific spot looks like in terms of change. You can capture these boats moving. If you look really closely, I'll play it again. Look at the coastlines, especially in the lower left here. You can actually watch how the shorelines are changing over time because beaches are very prone to erosion and deposition. You could see the waves lapping onto the shores. You can keep track of how many boats are coming in and out of these different ports. So it's extremely useful for monitoring things like climate change, marine traffic, construction, all sorts of stuff. This is an example of watching change in the natural world. So this is a glacier in Patagonia, which is in Chile in South America. Glaciers flow kind of like toothpaste, essentially. And they move very quickly. Every frame in this image is a single day. There might be a couple here where there's a few days in between the images, but we can watch how these glaciers are moving over time, which is really important because obviously we're losing a lot of glaciers due to climate change. And so we want to watch how they're changing, where the ice is breaking off, where ice might be melting to get pools on top of the glaciers, because that can lead to things like catastrophic floods, which is a problem if you have a glacier in a place like in the Himalayas, where you might be near populated areas, or places like the Alps, where you have a lot of not only people that live there, but huge tourism industries, so they can affect things like hotels. These are some examples from our SkySat satellites of fires burning in Brazil. So everywhere here that's green is an area that's still covered with trees, and all of the brown areas are places where the fires have destroyed the vegetation. So there are little to no trees left. Unfortunately, we see forest fires all over the planet almost on a daily basis. Some of them are natural from things like lightning strikes or hot weather. Other ones are humans doing things like what we call slash and burn agriculture, or negligent humans who have left campfires burning or thrown cigarettes out their car windows. So it's quite tragic, but we can keep an eye on these every day. And it's really good for things like figuring out where firefighters need to go to start catching the fires earlier on, especially if the fires are in a very remote area where there might not have been anybody on the ground that has seen it happening. These are just some example still images from our satellites. This is way up in northern Canada, taken in spring of last year. These are snow, a few small glaciers, and some frozen water in the middle there. This is late summer last year off the coast of Greenland. So all of the chunks that you're seeing here are chunks of ice that have come off of glaciers that are flowing into the Arctic Ocean. So this is a process called calving. So these glaciers break into pieces and start floating off into the water. So some of these you might see as icebergs later on. This is a view from China in spring of last year. Nice area where we've got some ice hitting up against some more deserty areas. I shouldn't call it a desert, an area that doesn't have a lot of vegetation in it. This is in the Australian outback. Australia is extremely colorful in satellite images because of the different types of minerals that we can find in the sand and the dunes there, mostly iron oxide or rust. That's what makes a lot of this look red. But the Australian outback is also full of really exotic salts, and they can have different colors in different areas where there are really salty lakes or places where the lakes have evaporated and left the salts behind. So our SkySat satellites are they're bigger than our doves, but they're not as big as a traditional satellite. These are more like the size of a small dishwasher. We have 21 of them in orbit. We just launched 6 of them over the summer on a couple of SpaceX launches. and they orbit at 450 kilometers, so a little bit lower than the Doves. And they have an extra spectral band. So in addition to the red, green, blue, and near infrared, there's something that's called a panchromatic band. And this is a grayscale band that gives you more information about the scenes that you're looking at. This is an example of some SkySat imagery before and after a hurricane hit in the Bahamas. So you can see, if you can see my mouse, if not, it's sort of to the left of center. You can see these boat docks that have been completely destroyed. You can see a bunch of these green areas are no longer green. That's places where the hurricane has completely taken out all of the vegetation. You can see places where some of the buildings have been destroyed. You can see areas where the water has flooded inland through here. So we are part of something called the International Disaster Charter. So whenever something like a major hurricane or a typhoon or something like that hits, we take imagery like this for first responders, and then we release it for free to the community so that people can start getting the data that they need and help people on the ground as quickly as possible. Our SkySat satellites also have a feature that, as far as we know, no other satellites have the ability to do right now. And this is to take full motion video from orbit. So this is in black and white because it's taken with our panchromatic bands. And you can see the cars driving on the highway here. This is over Dubai. You can see the waves hitting the ocean waves hitting the beach here. You can see individual buildings. You can see some of the structure in the water. It's kind of wobbly because that's actually the wobble of the satellite itself as it's orbiting, which is maybe like slightly motion sickness inducing, but I think it's kind of cool that we can see how the satellite itself is moving over time. Now, this is a SkySat view of a launch of some of our Dove satellites on a Soyuz rocket, which launched by Russia, and they launch out of Baikonur in Kazakhstan. So it looks really wonky because we had to turn the spacecraft at a really extreme angle to get this, just based on the time that the launch was. But I think it's one of the coolest things that we've ever taken from orbit. I won't be able to see what the comments say, so maybe in the comments on YouTube, people can put their guesses for what they think we're seeing in this video here. I'll play it a couple of times. And other than the clouds changing, because that's pretty obvious, you can see there's a color change moving across the image, kind of from the top center toward the lower left. I'll play it again. So I'll give the answer at the end of the Q&A section, but just take some ideas on what you think that might be. And with that, I'd love to leave you all with the question of what would you do if you could see daily change of anything on the world in any place at any time? We do have an education and research program at Planet where we can give access to students at places like universities, access to some of this data so you can start playing around with it. And it's a really exciting thing to be able to see what kind of ideas people come up with, especially students, because you guys tend to have some of the best and best new ideas that we can come up with. So yeah, if you guys have any questions about Planet or the satellites or satellite imagery, happy to try and answer them for you.
So first of all, thank you so much for this presentation. It was amazing. We do have a couple of questions from our audience. So our first one is, how many satellites does Planet Labs have?
So we have about 150 of the Doves, and we have 21 SkySats. The Dove satellites, they don't have any propulsion on board, so they're actually designed to deorbit over time naturally. Their orbits will just get lower and lower until they burn up in the atmosphere, and then we replace them with new ones, or we just launch more because we've developed a new version of the satellite that we really want to use instead of the old ones. And so we've launched over 300 satellites, but since we've had satellites in orbit for a few years now, some of those have deorbited and burned up as expected over time.
Okay, I see. And our second question is, how does collaboration between Planet Labs and other rocket launching agencies work?
That's a good question. So there's a few different ways. Like, usually it's just for launching. So we have to go to different launch companies to figure out, who is launching what and when. because we want to, generally, if we've got satellites ready to go, we'd like to launch them as soon as possible. But a lot of times we have to hitch a ride with a bigger satellite if we're going with someone like SpaceX or United Launch Alliance, who launches a lot of NASA's missions, or the Russian Soyuz rockets. So that requires some planning ahead. We have to figure out, is there a bigger mission that's launching into an orbit that is good for what we want our satellites to be in? But we have new small launch companies coming out like Rocket Lab that just launch small satellites like ours. And that way we can have a little bit more flexibility, because we don't necessarily have to wait for a larger mission that happens to be going the same direction that we need to go.
Thank you so much. This has been great. So I think now we'll transition into the giveaway. So Arush has more information on how exactly the goBILDA giveaway is going to work and how you can enter.
Yeah, so the link has been posted in chat, so you guys just have to click it. And the way it's going to work is that you're going to see a pop-up to visit our YouTube channel. We would also really appreciate if you could subscribe, since it helps us in the future if we post some more cool videos and webinars such as this. You also, please make sure to follow goBILDA on Twitch. They've been so generous and so kind to hook us up with an amazing giveaway. And for you guys, so thank you so much for all of you to watch as well. And with that, we can move on to our last presenter. So Ishan, do you want to introduce us to the last presenter?
Yep. So actually, before that, Dr. Harrison actually told me the answer to the question,
the
quiz question. Yeah. So the video was showing wild beasts eating their way across some grasslands in Africa. So that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So our next presenter is Mr. Elio Murillo. He's a Mars 2020 system testbed engineer at NASA JPL, or Jet Propulsion Laboratory. Mr. Murillo, if you want to take the stage.
Yeah, can you guys hear me? Just a quick mic check.
Yep,
Yep,
we can.
hear you. Yeah.
Fantastic. And is it also playing in the stream?
Yep.
Yep.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and share my screen.
Yeah.
Give me one moment here.
Yep.
I'm gonna take a different approach than the rest of the speakers. Now, I don't have full visibility into the live stream, but are you seeing my slides at this point?
Yes. Yeah, we can see it. We can see it.
Great. So thank you guys for having me. I want to talk a little bit about my story and kind of bring it down to show you guys what your pathways could look like if you so choose. And it's crazy what 10 years does to you. 10 years ago, I was in the same position as many of you. And now I am working on a rover that's about to land on Mars. I want to give you guys a little bit about, a little perspective about that, and talk a little bit about my immigrant story as well. And I will breeze a little bit through it because I know we're a little bit past the intended time, or I wasn't really quite sure intended time, but I'll keep it to less than 20 minutes so we can hit some Q&A. And that being said, I'm going to go ahead and get started because what I do want to highlight is that I am doing the stuff I am doing, and I by no means got here on my own. My name is Elio Murillo. I am currently in Los Angeles. I've jumped around. I'm quite a bit of a nomad. I was born in Ecuador, grew up in Puerto Rico. I went to high school in New York City, did my undergrad at Michigan. And I'll get into all the details of that in a few moments. First and foremost, I want to always start these conversations with a picture of my mom. I grew up in a single mother household, and I think it's really important for me to thank my mom every single time I get talked about space, because she's the one who has supported me every step of the way, and more than anything has made a lot of sacrifices to make sure I was doing well. And a little bit of insight into that, I love to show this picture of her because my mom was a principal in Ecuador. She was a teacher for most of her career, and things got a little ugly in Ecuador in the 90s. So like many of you may know, or many of you have experience with your immigrant stories or your parents' immigrant stories, she had to give a lot of that up. And I can't imagine to this day, if I had to give up everything I have to go to another country and start from scratch as a professional, how difficult that is. And the sacrifices that entails, because my mom went from being a principal at a prestigious school in Ecuador to then have to clean offices because she didn't know the language. She had to pick up whatever job she could to be able to support me and her. So very early on, hard work was very much instilled in me, and I think also just being able to understand that caring for each other is really important. Goes a long way. So this was in the 90s, and then she had to scratch that. Fortunately we had some family in New York City, and we were also lucky enough to get the green card lottery. We got selected through that, so we got our green cards to move to New York City in the late 90s, and we did. And obviously difficult for my mom to adapt, coming from the equator, country that was in the tropics, all of a sudden all the way through to New York City, where it was pretty cold, and many changes there. But we persisted, and so a string of life events lead to my older brother, who's 15 years older than I am, to marry a Puerto Rican. So that led us to move to Puerto Rico. And in Puerto Rico, we were there for several years. That's basically where I grew up. So my Spanish is all kinds of mixed up from different places. And during the time that we were there, I did, I guess, second grade through middle school in Puerto Rico. And then things got a little bit ugly in Puerto Rico as well. The good thing about moving to Puerto Rico is that my mom was able to go back and teach again. And she obviously could do New York City. And because of the language barrier, so she had the opportunity to go back to go to Puerto Rico, and it's part of the United States, so we're still within the United States environment and economy and all the benefits that come from that. And things got a little ugly in Puerto Rico in mid-2000s. So at the time, obviously, it was difficult for me because at this point I'm a little bit more conscious of what moving different countries entails. Because at this point, my mom decided we should move back to New York City when I was in the 8th grade, and at that point, I'm in middle school. I have friends that I've had for years. I was basically in love at that point, right? I had my crush at the time, and it was difficult because from there it was very clear some patterns that were going on in the island, that the economy was about to go to crumbles. So as you may or may not be aware of, Puerto Rico is a colony of the United States, so then that has implications. And then the mid-2000s until today, the economy there hasn't fully recovered. The hurricanes haven't made it any easy to do that. I'm fascinated by the technologies that come through from places like Planet, because it's very evident that the images and the direct implications of these hurricanes and climate change, how that affects people's day-to-day. So I'm fascinated. I actually want to reach out to Tanya after this and learn a little bit more about that, because it's very fascinating how direct that technology helps first responders and can develop economies, and how people think about how they rebuild cities and full nations at this point. Anyways, diverting a little bit because I'm still fascinated by that presentation. From there, we decided to move back to New York City, where I was in the Lower East Side at a high school, much like many of you. These are some of my friends that I'm still in touch with this day. I think something that I really truly believe is that surrounding yourself by people that are passionate about what they do is important, and it helps you all stay kind of on a path that will lead to impact. It could be in many different ways. All you will probably do different things. And those friends that are with you today, many of them will still be with you 10 years down the line. And that's always just something cool to think about. And hopefully you guys bring each other up. It's important in surrounding yourself by people that support you, and always remind yourself that you should be supporting your friends as well. So in New York City, I had the fortunate, I had great mentors, great teachers. And one of them in particular, his name is Vincent Pereira. He connected us with the professor at NYU who was working with the Spitzer telescope and data that was being generated at the time. to start investigating black holes. And that was my first exposure to research and what that entails and the processes that involves in partnerships and understanding different disciplines with different parties, with the different academic institutions and different methods and all this crazy math at the time that I didn't understand. But we were able to code up different types of numerical analysis to, at the end of the day, measure the amount of particles surrounding a very specific black hole, which was awesome because then we had data, we had results that our teacher then took us to Washington, D.C. to present at the American Astronomical Society Conference of 2010, which at the time I didn't realize, how big that was. This is the kind of conference where astronomers and different laboratories around the country and the world even present results and the latest and greatest astronomical findings. And we were there as high school students. And that didn't click for many years that our teacher had done that. So definitely be appreciative of the amount of work your teachers are putting into the kind of experiences and events they take you to and they make you aware of, because this stuff can lead to incredible experiences in whatever it is you choose to do. From there, that opened up the opportunities to then look a little bit into engineering. At the time, this was 2010. This is when Iron Man was all the rage, right? Iron Man came out, so I was like, oh my goodness, I want to be like Tony Stark. I want to get more involved with robotics. We didn't have first robotics, so the fact that you guys do, I think, is awesome. Stay involved. At the end of the day, building and playing with hardware is what teaches you how to be an awesome engineer, designer, scientist, and all the the skills that requires. It's not just being able to put together a circuit, but being able to talk within your teams and reaching out to each other when you don't understand something. It's very powerful. So keep that up. I actually participated in a summer program in Cooper Union, built a robot. That was the first experience with the robot. Probably very crude compared to some of the stuff you guys are all build today. But it was awesome. It was my first experience building hardware. In New York City, there aren't many places that have a time that maker spaces that I could just go show up and build things. So Cooper Union provided that opportunity for me to spend a summer building this robot that is themed around Night Fury from How to Train Your Dragon, which is all rage back then. And from there, I decided I wanted to be an engineer. And at the time that summer, I was eating pizza, messing around with robots, coming home, and I would have never thought that something similar would be what I'd be doing today, which is working with extraplanetary robots that do similar things. All the stuff you guys are going through today, I did too as well. 10 years ago, same stuff, Common App, AP classes, FAFSA, and my QuestBridge application. All things that you should all be paying attention to and doing and excelling with as best as you can. Make sure to ask for help because this is a very difficult process. So keep that up. And from early on, like I mentioned, a lot of the stuff that inspired me were, the planes that were coming out of the Air Force, Tony Stark and his Iron Man suit, all very much within reach. And I realized that all it really took was going to school. And I'm pretty sure most of you here already have plans to go to university, but there are many pathways to be able to do that, and reach out to mentors and understand what works best for you. Community college could be an option. 4-year universities are expensive, so things to consider. Get scholarships. There are many routes to getting funding for all this, so be mindful of all of these things. So I ended up at the University of Michigan. At the University of Michigan, I worked, I had many experiences. I was a mechanical engineer as an undergrad. I did my master's in systems engineering and design with a focus on spacecraft. So during my time at Michigan, I worked on jet engines with GE Aviation for the Super Hornet aircraft. I worked at SpaceX with Crew Dragon. So it's been awesome following along the recent events for that, because I had some direct inputs with some of the design there. And I worked with Boeing, working on some black projects and some missile technology. I don't think you can pay me enough to work with the military again, but that is now my personal moral stance. Very different from what it was once upon a time ago. And I work with CubeSats at Michigan, which are a very accessible it's very accessible technology that many schools now have programs with. So of course, if you're interested in space, get involved with your CubeSat teams as soon as you step, as soon as you attend university. It's a direct translation of many of the skills you are already building, and building your robots goes immediately into building small spacecraft that are, impactful, like Tanya was mentioning. And then of course I ended up at JPL. So I'll talk a little bit about that in a moment. Something I just want to remind everybody, have a good time. Something really important about the university experience, I think, is there's a lot of work hard. No one is going to take that away, especially if you go into engineering or sciences. It's going to require a lot of discipline, but always remember to have fun. This is a picture of me at the big house with a buddy of mine, making sure, one of these football Saturdays, we built one of these costumes and went around and had a great time. So always remember to have fun in everything you do. Little summary here, just to keep in mind how my life has transcended. Jumping around between countries has been difficult, but it's part of the immigrant experience, and many of you probably have very similar stories. Now I'm in Pasadena, California, working at the Jet Propulsion Laboratory. We love to call this place the center of the universe because a lot of the spacecraft that are out there, most extraterrestrial spacecraft, communicate with the Deep Space Network, and most of that information trickles down through JPL first before going out to other nations, all the labs around the country. So we lovingly call strictly, mission control, the center of the universe, because of that. And there's an incredible history for what JPL is and how JPL has developed what it is today. I invite you all to look up on Google a lot of that. There's actually really good content out there, because I'm going to focus today on Mars. Mars, we've talked a little bit about over the previous presentations. Mars is very interesting to us because it is relatively similar to Earth in many ways. And it is a clear, the universe has given us a test bed, in a way, to experiment with different technologies that we will ultimately use to expand our presence in the universe. Now, these are things that are very much long-term. This isn't all going to necessarily happen within our lifetimes, but we all have to take steps to develop technologies that are going to advance our overall civilization, to be able to survive in what is a pretty chaotic universe. To give you guys a little bit of insight about Mars, right? Mars has a third of gravity. So it potentially may be a little bit easier to jump on Mars, but something to be mindful about is our bodies are very much adapted to Earth gravity. So a lot of the challenges, if you look at, humans walking on the moon, they start stumbling around, falling around, because our bodies are not meant to really work outside of Earth gravity. So it's a challenge. It's useful, of course, for propulsion reasons and for helicopter reasons that I'll talk about in a moment. But for humans, it could potentially be quite a challenge. The atmosphere is 1% of what it is here on Earth, and the composition is completely different. So if we ever plan on being on Mars, we have to learn how to use that atmosphere to be able to survive. And that's something the Mars 2020 rover is actually actively trying to better understand. And I'll get to that in a moment. Of course, Mars is a lot colder than what it is here on Earth generally, particularly the landing site for the rover in particular has quite a range, between -125 degrees Fahrenheit, and its warmest day is 23 degrees Fahrenheit. So it's pretty cold. And as humans, obviously, that would be quite brutal to experience. So things to think about as you become designers for the Mars environment. And of course, the Mars year is a little bit different than Earth. One Mars year is basically 2 Earth years. So things we have to think about when we plan our operations on another planet. And that being said, we've been on Mars for quite some time now. NASA has had presence on Mars from the 70s onward, with the Viking landers and the different kind of spacecraft that we have on Mars. And that ranges between orbiters, which are like satellites that are spinning around the planet, and you have the landers, which literally do that, right? They don't have mobility systems. And then, of course, the rovers that have mobility systems that have expanded our ability to explore the surface of Mars. And of course, that is really important for many reasons, and give us, that freedom to go after really tough scientific questions. Some of the latest vehicles that have landed on Mars, of course, are Curiosity, which landed in 2012, and then Insight in 2018, which is a lander that is basically looking and listening to the heartbeat of the planet. So we have better understanding of the Mars quakes that happen there, not quite earthquakes, we call them Mars quakes, and have a better understanding of the core and the thermal gradients of the interior of the planet. The rovers, basically what have happened over time, they have given us different opportunities to expand our knowledge of the planet. So in 1997, when we sent that first tiny rover, which is probably about the size of one of the robots you guys are all building, Sojourner was the first time we sent our rover to Mars. And really the intent of that was to help us understand, how do we operate a rover on the surface of Mars? How do we actually do that? There's a light distance component, there's light time. You can't quite just toggle your remote controller and immediately get feedback from the rover. When you send a signal to Mars, it can take between 7 and 14 minutes to get there, depending where we are on orbit. And similarly, 7 to 14 minutes for that signal to come back. So things to think about, right? It's really challenging to be able to operate on another vehicle. And then the things I talked about, those temperature gradients you have during the day, are quite an engineering challenge, because you have to make sure your batteries stay warm enough so they don't freeze up. You have to understand how your power system, how your motors actually operate under different temperatures. If it's colder, you have more current, hence things could get hotter quicker. You don't quite have the atmosphere to control your thermal environments as you would here on Earth. So all of these different things go into the design process when building robots for Mars. Now, we learned that through Sojourner, we could rove around the surface of Mars and we could successfully operate a rover. So from there, we started asking tougher scientific questions that led to the Mars exploration rover, Spirit and Opportunity. Those rovers were meant to only operate officially for 90 sols. We call Martian days sols because they're a little bit longer than Earth days. So we like to have that distinction in our terminology for, day-to-day reasons, really. Spirit and Opportunity led us to have an understanding that, on Mars at some point in its history, there was water. And, we've on Earth, we understand that where there's water, there is life. So we have developed different type of instruments that have led us to have better understanding and better insights to that exact question. Was there at any point in the lifetime of the red planet an environment that could support Mars? So with the understanding that Spirit and Opportunity gave us of, there was water at some point on Mars, because the way we did that, by the way, at the end of the day, it's pretty rudimentary. And if you all go to a river right now or a lake, you go pick up a rock, you split it in half. Very likely it's a sedimentary rock. Basically rocks that if you look at closely, there's different layers of different colors, different gradients. What that tells you is that over time, where there was water, different kind of materials were deposited. And then at some point, all that pressure just builds up and gives you these beautifully gradient rocks that basically tell us, hey, at some point water was flowing through here and depositing different materials. And that's basically what Spirit and Opportunity showed us, is that there were sedimentary rocks, and that meant that at some point water was flowing in that local environment where we were studying. So with that understanding, then we said, all right, Curiosity, what can we do with Curiosity? The instruments that were developed for Curiosity basically led us to understand that, at some point there was a habitat or there was an environment that could have supported life. Curiosity also really helped us understand that on the surface of Mars, there are organic materials. Now, big thing to, the caveat with that is that organic materials could be a result of both biological processes and geological processes. So we can't quite determine whether these organic materials that are on the surface of Mars are a result of biology. So that's where Mars 2020 comes in, and the Perseverance rover and these different instruments that we're bringing on board. And there's 4 primary objectives that are part of this mission. Number 1, first of all, we got to continue our studies of understanding of the environment of Mars, how, understanding that climate that surrounds the rover and how that fluctuates over the years, because Mars has seasons very much like Earth. Now, with that, another important thing with the mission is going to be, is there any kind of biological traces, or is there any kind of traces that lead us to believe that there was actually life on Mars? And that becomes a little bit more complex. We have instruments on board that will help us map those organic molecules and kind of correlate them with structures that we understand on Earth are very much similar to organism structures that we have. And then with that, there are going to be samples that we collect, rocks that are interesting enough that our scientists are going to determine, hey, that rock we just found, we think we want to encapsulate, because 10 years down the line, there's a follow-up mission to Mars 2020, and that's going to be the Mars sample return mission, which is we're going to collect samples that we find interesting enough so that then more in-depth studies can be done on Earth. And now, technically, a Mars sample return mission is incredibly difficult, because now you have to go through the steps of launching from Earth, going through space, landing on Mars, gathering your samples, launching from Mars, collecting your samples on orbit, and bringing them back to Earth, something that has never been done. So obviously a very exciting mission that's going to happen within the next 10 years. And many of you will actually have the opportunity to be a part of, be it through your internships and your internship opportunities that you'll be able to follow in your university, or later on, full-time engineers, if that's what you want to do. I mean, by all means. Another really important aspect of the mission is understanding how the human architecture has to be developed on the surface of Mars so we can survive on the surface of Mars. That's where the instrument MOXIE steps in. MOXIE is going to use that atmosphere, that local atmosphere on Mars, to use that primary carbon dioxide that exists on Mars to convert it to usable oxygen. Now, that usable oxygen is really important, because not only is it for the survival of the humans on the surface of Mars, but also to create propellant that will have to be used on rockets that are launching from the surface. So these are all things that Mars 2020 is directly going after. So we have those operational understandings of how do we actually do that remotely prior to astronauts ever even getting on the surface. Now, another thing that I'm super excited about is going to be the Mars helicopter. Now, the Mars helicopter is fascinating. It's a tech demo. And something I want you to all realize is that barely, just a little bit more than 100 years ago, we were just learning how to fly on the surface of Earth. And now, February of next year, or really in the spring of next year, we're going to be flying an aircraft on another planet. And now that, as human beings, we've never done this. So it's a really, I think, fascinating aspect of the Mars 2020 mission. And I do want to emphasize that it's a technological demo. So just like Sojourner was in the 90s, where we were just learning how to use rovers, this helicopter is going to provide us data that then we can use to design future missions. Because if this becomes, if we notice that this is very useful, instead of sending rovers, we can send drones, like a group of drones to the surface of Mars to do science for us. And eventually, right, the astronauts could use drones as scouts. So all these different technologies are going to feed directly into the human program later on. And obviously a really exciting time, because a lot of the technologies that are going on these helicopters are commercially off-the-shelf technologies. So just like Tanya was talking about CubeSats using cell phone components, Similarly, this helicopter uses a Snapdragon processor, which is in many of your guys' phones. So be mindful that all these technologies that we're developing and through other industries on Earth are being applied in planetary missions. And similarly, a lot of that technology that applies to planetary missions gets brought back to Earth. So very exciting, very fascinating, and I'm super pumped for what's coming February 2021. EDL is going to happen February 18th. Entry, descent, and landing. Forgive my use of acronyms. So be on the lookout. And right now, that's what we're doing on the ground at JPL. We are making sure we are fully prepared for those first few days on Mars. Critical for the spacecraft, of course. Entry, descent, and landing is terrifying, and I invite you all to look up the 7 minutes of terror video on YouTube, because that does an incredible job in showing what it actually is to enter a planet, or to enter Mars in particular, through the sky crane maneuver that we're going to be using to land this Perseverance. It's exciting, it's really difficult, and many things to learn there. So of course, like I mentioned, the follow-on to Mars 2020 is going to be the Mars Sample Return mission. Very complex, still in plans, still in development. It's going to be a multinational effort. Really exciting ways in which many organizations across the world are getting involved with the Mars Sample Return. And that's something to be on the lookout for the next 10 years, because again, the implications of the science is that, you know what, maybe we're not alone in the universe. And that's what we are ultimately in the search for here. Understanding whether or not biology happened on Mars or is happening, we don't know. And then the implications of that, right? All of you, for all of your creeds to think, how does that, what does that mean for me? And what does that mean for my position in the universe? Really difficult and complicated questions for everybody to think about. So that being said, I love this picture. I love to close out with this picture. This is a picture of Earth from Mars. This is what Curiosity has seen from the surface. And one day, this is potentially what one of you could see, because you know what? Maybe one of you here will be an astronaut that is on the surface of Mars, looking at Earth. And everything we know and love is in that little dot and those little few set of pixels on Earth. So something I think that is really powerful about being part of the space industry, it forces us to look up and at the same time understand how special Earth is, and how we really should be taking care of the planet and those around us. So with that, I'll leave it open to questions, and thank you guys for your time.
Thank you so much. That was an amazing presentation. We have a couple of we have a quick question from the chat. What are some important things to keep in mind when creating a rover?
What are some important things in mind? That's a very broad question. Again, I think part of the major design process is that you have to develop a thorough set of requirements. What is this rover going to be used for? What are the questions that we're trying to ask? And then with that, the engineering constraints. What kind of environments is the rover going to be in? Is it going to be rough terrain? Is it going to be cold? Is it going to be hot? How long, how often will it be used throughout the day? Are our power systems in to be able to operate X amount of time in a day? How much autonomy is built into the rovers? Will the rover make its own decisions when driving from point A to B? Or is the ground, as in is the Earth operator, going to be making more decisions for the rover? And it's a complex system, because that's something you have to think about, is these rovers don't necessarily just do all of its computation on board. A lot of the computation many times is done on the ground with data that is brought back from the rover, that is downlinked, as we talk about. So there's a lot of constraints you have to think about, and of course things are expensive. At the end of the day, this is all funded through taxpayer money. So everybody, remember to pay your taxes. This is probably the best return of investment your taxes have. I hope that answers a little bit. It's a broad question you asked, but I hope that gives an idea.
Yep, for sure. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
And
thank you.
Now, in the webinar, we're finally coming into the giveaway period. So Arush, if you want to explain the logistics in terms of that.
Yeah, so the way the giveaway is going to work is, we've already picked the winners for the giveaway. We posted a gleam.io link. And again, just to reiterate, we have 4 main things for the giveaway that will be announced for who got what. So if you've won the giveaway, make sure you send an email to marketing@goBILDA.com, and also send us an email. Also, within the same email, tag FTC don't blink at gmail.com, because then we have your contact information. We can reach out to you. And please do this within the next 24 to 48 hours. And if you guys don't do that, we would have to pick a new winner, unfortunately. So with that being said, thank you so much for tuning into the webinar, and we can announce the winners right now. So Ashmit.
Yeah, so the first thing that we have are the 4 goBILDA motors, and the winner of this is Ale Jacques. If I pronounced that right.
I think so. Yeah.
And then for the dual mode goBILDA servos, we have Shane Tipton.
Yep.
And yeah, again,
Congrats.
Congrats
to both of you.
That's a lot of good stuff.
And now we're moving on to the goBILDA hat, and hoodie. So the winner of that giveaway item is Danny Lee. So congrats to you. And as you can see there, FEC Don't Blink just posted the email to message. And our winner for the $50 store credit for goBILDA is Runbeer Sublok. So congrats to you as well.
And most importantly, the biggest thing about this webinar, thank you so much to all the presenters here today. They can't hear me right now because I'm muted on Zoom, but if they're watching, thank you so much. This has been absolutely amazing, and it's been a blast. I've also learned a lot. I'm sure everyone has too. So yeah. Again, remember to email us if you won the giveaway. We do have the emails from the Gleam IO link, so we would be double checking if it's actually you who won the giveaway. But apart from that, thank you all so much for tuning in. We couldn't have done this without everyone watching, so that's gonna
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, that's gonna be it for our first live stream.
Yeah. We'll be back.
We'll be back, definitely. Make sure to subscribe.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.